Have you ever felt like you've been stuck in a never-ending cycle of conflict, tension, and emotional turmoil? Maybe at work, maybe when you are with your friends, or maybe in your family. In that case, you might have come in contact with the drama triangle. In this video, I'm going to explain what the drama triangle is and why you should care about it, and why How to Break Free from the Drama Triangle and Victim Consciousness is such a great book to explore the topic further. Hi and welcome to the Book Lab. I'm Björn, and this is the place where we bring you the best book recommendations when it comes to philosophy, psychology, human nature and human potential. And today we're going to talk about the drama triangle. In order to understand what the drama triangle is about, we need to understand social games and transactional analysis. Transactional analysis is a psychoanalytical theory that analyzes social interactions. The founder of transactional analysis is Eric Berne, who wrote this book, Games People Play, back in 1961. In the book, he describes a number of mind games that people act out through a series of patterned and predictable social interactions. These transactions appear normal to bystanders, even to the people involved, but they are emotionally dishonest. Ultimately, these games, they help conceal people's real motivations. And once you start to break these games down into components, you notice how childlike and banal they are. Game transactions like these are manipulative and dysfunctional ways of getting what you want without direct communication, without asking for it. Berne's book uses casual, often quite funny phrases to describe the themes of these dysfunctional games, such as, "See what you made me do. Now I got you, you son of a. Why does everything always happen to me? Let you and him fight." Dr. Berne believed that adults play these games as a result of a warped childhood, culture and society. He recognized that most people are psychologically incapable of authentic intimacy. So what is the drama triangle? The drama triangle is a dysfunctional social game that involves several of the games that I talked about before. The game involves three interchangeable roles: the victim, the rescuer and the prosecutor. The dynamics within the drama triangle is characterized by a continuous cycle of shifting roles where individuals alternate between feeling powerless, trying to save others, or adopting an aggressive stance. These roles feed into each other, leading to a toxic loop of drama and tension. The book provides an example of the drama triangle in a domestic environment. Act 1. Dad comes home from work to find his children in the family room watching TV and eating snacks. Mom is in the kitchen, she's having a cup of coffee and she reads the newspaper. This doesn't match the dad's expectation. He had fantasized about coming home to a quiet evening where the dinner was ready, that when the children has done their homework. When Dad opens the front door, he finds that things are not as he imagined. He assumes the role of the prosecutor. "You're supposed to be in your room doing your homework. You know the rules." Feeling prosecuted by the father, the children takes on the roles as victims. "Well, Mom said it was okay for us to watch TV." Mom comes into the room. She assumes the rescuer role and she says to Dad, "The kids are just relaxing after being at school all day." Act 2. The second act opens at the point where Mother moves from the rescuer to the prosecutor role. She attacks Dad. "Why do you have to come home every night and yell at the kids?" The father, he rotates into the victim role, and the children quickly pick up the rescuer role. They turn off the TV and say, "We're going to our rooms to do our homework." Act 3. Dad shifts to the prosecutor role and attacks Mother. "Why in the heck did you let the kids watch TV, and why don't you have dinner ready? What have you been doing since you got home from work? You know I'd be hungry." The daughter, she hears the parents arguing in the kitchen. She comes running to the rescue. "I'll help you with dinner, Mom." Act 5. Dad starts to sense that he is becoming the bad guy. He tries the rescuer and says, "Why don't we just order pizza and stop worrying about that dinner is not ready?" Act 5. The mother, who has not yet been the victim, takes on the role of the super victim. "I'm perfectly capable of getting dinner. Besides, it's too late for pizza. I've already defrosted the meat from the dinner and we can't afford letting it go to waste." Act 6. Mother switches into the prosecutor role and dad becomes the victim. All you can ever think about is doing something that costs us more money. You don't even pitch in and help us to get dinner ready. You just complain about it not being ready. Act 7. At this point, dad has the choice of becoming the victim or the super prosecutor. He decides to explode and rage. I'm tired of always being the bad guy. I'm going to go and watch TV and I don't even want any dinner. As you noticed in this story, there's no direct communication, it's just projections, people judging each other, people making assumptions, and it might seem like a benign game, but it's actually halting your development as an individual if you always partake in this kind of dysfunctional dynamics. The ultimate goal of each player in the drama triangle is to become the victim, because as a victim you can feel like you're not responsible. You always have someone to blame, which leads us up to the second key concept from this book, victim consciousness. What is victim consciousness? Victim consciousness is a mental state where a person perceives themselves as powerless or helpless, often attributing their circumstances and emotions to external factors that are beyond their control. Those caught in victim consciousness tend to focus on their own suffering and unintentionally seek attention and validation from others. This mindset not only perpetuates their own feelings of helplessness, but it also invites the involvement of the rescuer and the prosecutor that we find in the drama triangle. Before we get into how you can break free from the drama triangle and victim consciousness, I just wanted to say that if you enjoy the content on the channel, subscribe and like. That will make sure that when I put up a new video, it will show up in your feed. I make book reviews every week, and each month I also do a curated list of the most exciting non-fiction books that hits the market during the month. And if you really want to support the book lab, then become a patron and get exclusive content through that. So how do you break free from the drama triangle and victim consciousness? First of all, it's going to take a big commitment from you, a lot of intention and self-awareness, but the book provides 5 key steps that you need to take in order to break free. First off, you need to commit to getting your needs met by asking directly for what you want and what you need. This means giving up your victim behavior and your victim consciousness. Secondly, you have to refuse to rescue others. Don't do anything for anyone unless they have asked you to, or if you have gotten permission to do it. And number 3, you have to recognize and reclaim your projections. You have to take a close look at your judgment of other people and see if there's anything in that judgment that might represent things that you don't like about yourself. This echoes a little bit of Carl Jung, who says that when we are annoyed with someone else's behavior, it's usually just a projection of something that we don't like in ourselves. Five, learn to express your emotions and feelings authentically in the present moment. Don't save things up for later and dump it on people then. When you don't express your feelings right away and you go around holding them inside you, they usually come out less authentically and more strongly. A key part to becoming an autonomous and integrated individual is to stop playing games. And it all starts with awareness, and because these games, they are played out everywhere, but they are hard to see. They are so commonplace that you might not even know that you yourself play games, or people in your family do, right? And that's where books like Eric Berne's Games People Play, How to Break Free of the Drama Triangle and Victim Consciousness come in. Because when we read these books and we learn about these games in detail, we become aware of them in our surroundings. And this awareness is the first step to unravel our own dysfunctional behaviors and communication patterns. A word of warning though for those who want to escape the drama triangle is that the people who you usually play this drama triangle game with, they will probably label you as the bad guy, right? And there's a nice analogy in this book about how that can happen and how it plays out. The analogy is that of a Coke machine that is broken. When you stop playing the game, it's like when a soda machine doesn't do what it's supposed to do. You insert a coin, but you don't get your Coke, right? So the people might start to push all your buttons, right? If the first one doesn't work, they might even start to bash and kick you. And this is probably the hardest part. You might have to stop engaging with certain people as you escape your victim consciousness. But eventually, the people will understand that that Coke machine won't get you any Coke, and they will go and find another one that gives them the drama that they are addicted to. How to Break Free of the Drama Triangle is one of those books, just like The Art of Loving by Eric Berne, where I felt like I was underlining every other line or so in the book. The information is very condensed and elegantly put out. What you look at here is a book that is utterly to the point and that wastes no time at all. Compared to Games People Play, I think this one is much more accessible, but that said, I think this is a real classic that you should read too if you're interested in this type of psychology. I call it a little bit of dark psychology because the themes are they kind of make me feel uneasy. The problem is, some people on Twitter pointed this out, that you can't really get this book off Amazon right now. If I find a way to get it, I will put it in the description below, where you also will find links to all the other books that I talked about in this video and the reviews of those, because I'm going to share a few more books that also goes into what I call like dark psychology around the topic of dysfunctional communication. So we talked about Games People Play. This is a fundamental book when it comes to transactional analysis. But I also want to recommend The Human Magnet Syndrome, the Codependent Narcissist Trap. And this is about the dynamics between narcissists and codependent people and why they are drawn together. It's super interesting stuff. And when it comes to direct communication, radical honesty, this book is over the top. Brad Blanton, he suggests us to tell the truth, and he goes way beyond that. Like, you should say everything exactly as you think about it, not shying away from anything. It's quite extreme, but it's also very refreshing. And I think being honest and being direct, that's a key skill. And I think this is a fun way to look further to the extremes of truth telling. I really recommend this book. I have a review up on that, so you can look at that right after this. I'm back next week with more book reviews. Then we're going to talk about Outlive, a book about how we can live a longer and healthier life. So see you next week with more book reviews. Björn out.